Welcome to Dear Diaspora, a podcast celebrating the African diaspora and the changemakers, innovators, and entrepreneurs working to make our world a better one to live in. I'm your host, Ndulwa Kowa. Let's get started. So before I introduce the next guest, don't forget to leave a review, subscribe, and rate on Apple Podcasts. It makes a huge difference, and one key way that it does that is people are more likely to check out an episode or two if they see that there are ratings and if they see that people are actually listening to the content and enjoying the content. And one way to show that you enjoy the content is by leaving a review. So for everyone that's left a review, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if you are listening on any other podcast listening platform, please make sure you follow the podcast so you're notified each Sunday when new episodes come out. And lastly, if you're listening on Spotify, you can actually share the podcast that you listen to on Instagram stories, just like you would a song. So if you're listening to Dear Diaspora on Spotify, you can share that in your Insta stories and I will repost. So of course, tag Dear Diaspora and I will repost, and really appreciate you spreading the word about the podcast. Happy Sunday, Dear Diaspora fam. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 27 of the show. I am so excited to introduce my next two guests. I had the pleasure of interviewing Nii and Kristin Quaye. They are the founders of Certified Africa. Certified Africa is influencing travelers of color to connect, do business on the continent, and share their entrepreneurial talents while contributing to the development of Africa. So Nii and Kristin met back in 2016 while Kristin was participating in a legal study abroad program in Ghana. Nii showed Kristin around his home country, and he was able to do the same for her family when they came to visit her in Ghana. And so over time, they thought to themselves, why not bring even more people to Ghana, show them around, and share the numerous business opportunities available. And Certified Africa was born. So Certified Africa curates transforming trips to Ghana, where travelers have the opportunity to experience fun, adventure, nightlife, and authentic culture. I really enjoyed learning more about Certified Africa and all of the amazing work that Nii and Kristin are doing in Ghana, and it was just such a cool thing to learn about. And I really, really love what they're doing because we're seeing a lot of these travel companies kind of pop up, but I haven't seen too many people focused on business specifically and sharing business opportunities that are available on the continent. And so I really love this conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Nii and Kristin, and I hope you guys enjoy the conversation as well. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Nii and Kristin Quaye. Kristin and Nii, thank you so much for being guests on the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad we got to meet and just learn about each other a bit more on Instagram, Kristin. And so, yes, for those who aren't familiar with Certified Africa or haven't heard of it, could you give us a brief overview of what it is?
Yes, so Certified Africa is a travel company that is focused on bringing members of the African diaspora to the continent to connect, explore Africa, and to explore business opportunities. And so we're using this mode of travel to really introduce the diaspora to the continent and allow them to see all of the possibilities in business within Africa.
Awesome. That's so cool. And so, Kristin, I know you are American, and then Nii, you're from Ghana.
Yeah, Ghanaian, yeah.
Ghanaian, yes. Could you share a bit more about your story? Like, how did you guys meet, and what inspired you both to get started with Certified Africa?
Yeah, so my name is Nii Quaye, like you mentioned, Nii. So I'm originally from Ghana. Of course, lived and grew up in Ghana until I was very hardened before moving to the US. So I met Kristin in Ghana in 2016. She came for a study abroad, a legal study abroad program in Ghana, which I was part of at the time. And we connected throughout the program. And after the program, I took the chance to really, immerse her into the culture and show her what Ghana or Africa has to offer, which she fell in love with. And during the last part of her stay, 3 month stay, she invited the parents to come down and also experience what she experienced. So the parents were in Ghana for 10 days. And together we put together an itinerary to show them, again, the culture, the people, some of the fun things that you can do in Ghana. And they loved it too. So we're talking about how we can be able to get some other family people of theirs to come and visit and experience what they experience as Black people, because they had never visited the continent before. So from there, fast forward, Kristin and I got together. I moved here, we got married, and we decided to come up with a company or a business that we could use to get beyond family and friends to visit the continent, to experience what they had experienced. But there's a business aspect that we decided to attach, which I'll let Kristin talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So when we were thinking about, what could make the travel company unique and what would be our niche, actually, Nii had experienced a lot of foreigners that would come to Ghana from either Europe or Asia, and they always, no matter how much relaxation they did, they always would take a look at business and have a lot of different business meetings while they were there. But what he noticed is that a lot of the people who were visiting Ghana for business didn't look like him, and it didn't look like, they weren't Black people, people of the diaspora. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to infuse a business aspect into each of our travel experiences. So what we do is, during our trips, we have one day business session where we introduce our travelers to what they can invest their monies in, whether that be $5,000, $2,000, whatever that number might be. And then we also introduce them to various sectors that are great to invest in and take a look at. And in addition to that, we also expose them to field experiences. So if there's a particular experience that they are interested in, we are able to, expose them to that throughout the trip.
Yeah, so let me add one key thing as well, is in the process of doing all of this, we connect them to other people that are doing things on the continent. So at least you have a model, someone to look at to say, well, this person is doing this very thing that I'm kind of passionate about in the diaspora. So we create those connections in the midst of these various activities. So that's what basically Certified Africa does.
Awesome. Thank you both for breaking it down. And so, what would you say like excites people the most as far as like business opportunities go once they do get to Ghana and get to, do some of the field experiences and learn more about, some of the other companies that are doing well on the continent?
So what here's what I'll say. Now, for our trips that we just did, November and December last year, now most of our travelers, before they came, they took a survey. And one of the things we asked was about whether or not they may want to do something on the continent in terms of business or anything. Most of them said no, or they are not sure. Only about just a handful said yes. Now, once they visited the continent, close to 100 people, they visited the continent. We went through all the processes, the fun and everything. We did a business event. Now, after the trip, we did another survey and we tried to find out about the same question that we had asked them about. And it was very interesting to know that all of them, so far, the people who have filled the survey, more than half, all the people that filled it said they're interested in doing something business. The question is why. Now, once they got there and they realized that now I've lived in America my entire life, all I've known is America, but and all I've done is perhaps be in a job 9 to 5. But here's a continent that presents me with so much opportunity that I can actually do on the side. I don't have to necessarily do it full time. And with little monies, I'm able to get involved with so many different things. Now, here's another case. They realize they're encountering other people that are doing things that needs partnership, that needs people that can throw some monies in there. They're willing to run it to see it succeed. So they were like, I mean, what more could I ask for? What more could I look for than a place like this? And they also, of course, learned that Africa has so many people that can patronize whatever it is that they're willing to do. And for some of them that shared the experiences, it was also the fact that their skills and things that they're already doing here is of great resource and it's even more respected on the continent. So what more could they have than to begin to do business in a place like that? So that was some of the things that really excited people that made them want to at least take a step and do something. And the last thing I'll say is they realized that there were a lot of loopholes in terms of opportunities that people were not tackling. So there were a lot of less competition in most of the fields that they wanted to go into. Not too many people were doing that. So they were like, this is a green light to move into the continent.
Oh, wow. And so, what would you say are some of the fastest growing industries in Ghana that would be worth looking into for someone who isn't living in Ghana?
Well, I mean, the opportunities are endless. I'll first of all look at agriculture because don't forget, Africa has 60% of the world's unused land. And Ghana, I'm sure, has a lot of that. It's all over the place. Anything that you want to grow, as long as people keep eating, definitely we need people to grow. And the farmers are there, the lands are there. We need people who want to invest monies into it. So I can say agriculture is one of the key places. Of course, the richest man in Africa is hugely into agriculture. So that's a huge sector that I can say people can invest sometimes little monies and they could make good returns. Now, real estate is another huge market in Africa because there's a huge growing middle class on the continent. So for Ghana, for instance, we have a lot of people who are moving into the working class. We're making good monies that may like good accommodation to live in. Okay, so real estate is a good place that if people, it doesn't have to be just you. You can partner with other people, move into the place. I mean, I know a group that came on our trip, 9 of them. Okay, they're partnering and coming to do something on the continent. So you can partner and move into a field like real estate, which is a good sector to also look at. Now, manufacturing is also a key part because Africa do a lot of export of raw materials. So if we have somebody that can actually build something like something that can process most of the things that we make or are able to make things or create things right on the continent because we have all the raw materials. That's a good field for people to look at. And you don't need so much, not regulations like hurdles to jump when it comes to those things. Because usually if you want to do business in Africa, especially Ghana, there's some thresholds that you need to meet in terms of monies that you need to bring in. But with things like manufacturing, processing, you don't need so much. So that's an advantage for people, to jump in. So these 3 areas, I think, are some key places. Of course, IT is a growing field. Fintech and all of these things, they're growing fields that, people can begin to look at. If you have an expertise in the field, it can also be used. And that's one of the key aspects of doing business in Africa. Whatever you're doing here as your expertise, you can always branch out and spread out to Africa. And that's your number one asset that you have when it comes to doing business on the continent. I don't know if Chris will add.
I mean, I always like to tell people whatever it is that you're passionate about, whatever it is that you're currently doing, it's needed. It's needed in Africa. And you could be the first person to start it. You could be the second person. And what that says is that there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of unmet needs that are an opportunity for you to branch out and to do something amazing on the continent.
Yeah. So let me just add briefly that sometimes people look at cumbersome things, but these things are You can start from somewhere very basic, especially when you're coming from the diaspora with few dollars or few pounds, wherever your currency you use in euro. You can be able to start something, buy 3 machines to start working for you, and gradually you're able to build a huge business. So you don't have to look at something cumbersome. I advise some people. I told them, look, you can even buy a car to start doing Uber for you on the continent. And by the time you realize you bought two, you bought three, and it grows like that. So things that people underestimate, very little things that you could throw your money in here, uh, and here and there, and with time it will grow to become so huge. And investing in people too is very key on the continent, because a lot of people have great talents, and are doing amazing things. If you can throw a few, monies behind them, that's a huge investment, like a Shark Tank. You could be a Shark Tank in Africa in your own small way, and that could bring you a lot of returns going forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. And so could you guys share a bit more about what you think of so like last year with the year of return, we saw a lot of people I think just have a bigger interest in visiting Ghana specifically and other countries on the continent. And I think I saw some pretty significant numbers as far as like how much the year of return contributed to the Ghanaian economy. I can't remember off the top of my head, but could you guys share a bit more about what you observed while you were there and how and just the impact of the year of return and the movement?
Yeah, it brought in a lot of money. Tourism is going to be huge with the year of return sort of kicking off that influx of people coming to the continent and people returning, wanting to return. And, just being there on the continent and seeing the the people who were coming home to a place that many of them or many of their ancestors maybe thought that they would have never returned to. It really was a great feeling. It was amazing to be in the airport and to see people smiling and energy and just emotions were running high. Specifically for me, the day that I saw a lot of people arriving in the airport, and it was a huge impact on the the businesses that were in Ghana as well. So, when all of these people are coming home and returning for the year of return, you have them staying in hotels, you have them, going out to eat, you have them buying items, you have them patronizing all of these businesses, you've been going to the markets. So that is a huge influx of money that is being pushed into the economy, and so it's a great thing, and it touched a lot of people.
Yeah. So let me just add a few, to what Chris has said. So in terms of economic impact, of course, like she said, it impacted economically a lot because you have a lot of people patronizing a lot of different things, which of course brought a lot of revenue. But overall, in terms of what I observed, generally, we're looking at a lot of celebrities who ordinarily may not have looked at perhaps Africa trooping in because of the year of return. So in Ghana, for instance, of course, right from last 2 years, you had some celebrities like Boris Kojo and Michael Jai White and all of these actors trooping in, just before the actual year of return started. And during the year of return, about 400 of different celebrities from the US and the UK and from other parts of Europe, trooping into the country. That was huge. That highlighted, Africa as a whole, because you don't only hear people talking about Ghana. People keep mentioning, Africa, Africa. We're going to Africa. Steve Harvey, coming to do his show in South Africa. That was huge. Of course, you hear about that in Ghana as well. And you talking about Afrochella, which is just like, of course, the African Coachella. It's become very famous. Everybody wants to attend Afrochella. So that was one of the key events as well. And last year, Afro Nation also, who's been doing huge events for Black people all over the world, came to Africa. of course, to Ghana specifically. And that was a lot of fun. Of course, it brought a lot of joy. And for me, the fact that it highlights the continent, it gets people talking about the continent. Because before all of this, there were a lot of people who never, I mean, even heard about Africa. Trust me, you talk to people and they don't even know where that is. They think Africa is a whole country, which is, of course, some of the misconceptions. But once they begin to hear more about the continent, oh, you have returned, where? Ghana, here, there, here, and there, they begin to realize that, oh, this is bigger than we thought. So that was some of the key things that, came up. And it also made other African countries also pick up because once people begin to look at Africa, they now begin to look at, oh, where else is there apart from Ghana? Then they know there's Nigeria, there's Tanzania, there's South Africa, there's all of these places that they could also, visit. The people who have never really thought about Africa. So I think overall, that was some of the feeling. And it was fun. I can tell you, people were so excited from January to December. It was all fun. In fact, to January this year, it was all fun. The feeling was, people feeling fulfilled, like my wife said, as Black people finally returning home. And of course, the people who are back home too in Ghana being excited to have that influx of people trooping in and interacting, and sharing a culture with them. That was amazing. I mean, if you miss the year of return, trust me, you missed something huge. And you should join the Beyond the Return this year and the next 10 years. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, yeah, I would love to do that and also encourage anyone listening to do the same. So for people who, let's say, are interested and want to learn more about traveling to Ghana with Certified Africa, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can always go on our website, which is www.certifiedafrica.com, as well as reach us on social media. So we're on Facebook at Certified Africa and also Instagram at Certified Africa. And you can also send us an email, certifiedafrica@gmail.com.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and just to say that this year we have a number of trips coming up. One in July, we have one in August. We have a solely business trip in September, and then for people who really want to do business, and then we have, of course, our usual New Year's Eve in Ghana, in the motherland, experience in December to crown the year, December into the new year to crown the year.
Yeah,
You know.
and we're doing something a little bit different. And for next year in 2021, one thing that we also want to do is, we are a couple that is in business and we're doing business on the continent. And so we want to invite other couples to come on a couples trip, couples in business trip, love and business. And that will be in 2021. So September, it'll be in September. So you can take a look out for more information and details about that. It'll be a limited amount of couples because we really want to be able to connect and we want it to be really intimate and, do a lot of things with other couples who are focused on building something, building, an empire, really.
Legacy, yeah.
Yeah, and a legacy. So that's something that we are branching out into for 2021.
That is so cool. Yeah, I'll be excited to see that and yeah, if you guys document it and things like that. Um,
Yeah.
and so, what would you say? Could you like share a bit more about what it's like to live in the U.S. and have a business that's on the continent? Like, how do you balance like traveling, relationships with like the businesses in Ghana? Like, how do you just manage all the moving parts?
Yeah, I think it's first the first thing I say is, taking away the fear. Once you take away the fear of it being difficult to do, then the next step will be moving down to the continent and finding people, building relationships and people you can trust. Because if you've ever visited Africa, Africa is all about relationships, who you know. So once you've built the relationships, it's easy to cross certain hurdles. So what I'll say is that if you move down, if you take away the fear, move down, build relationships with people that you can trust. Once you have that, you're sorted. anything that you start, you have people to take care of it. So you don't always have to 24/7 travel to the continent to look at it. We personally have businesses there. Of course, I'm from there, so maybe that's an advantage. But I now know other people who are not from Ghana, but are doing business in Ghana and they live here in America. Several of them. Okay. And once in a while, they move down to check their businesses. Okay. There's a lady who runs a real estate and she does Airbnb from Ghana. People pay online, so money doesn't go to anybody. It comes to her because these days, of course, with fintech and all of that. So she takes the money, she pays whoever is managing or taking care of the property, and they're good to go. So you don't always have to visit, always have to be there 24/7. You can initiate any type of business. If you go there, that's excellent. If you want to stay there, that's beautiful because you enjoy your stay. But however, if you're not ready to make that move, you can still initiate, have people you can trust take care of it. And that's the advantage. Sometimes the advantage in coming with a company, maybe like Certified Africa, that are doing things like that. That we have a channel to support people who want to go beyond the fun to tackle businesses. Because when you trust us, we can now put you in contact with people you can trust that can help your business, whatever it is that you set up. So yes, so that's how we can make that happen.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think, yeah, like you said, knowing people and being very, I think, familiar with the ecosystem and who you need to be talking to is super important. Because I think a lot of times people kind of skip that part and just say, like, oh, we're going to go do this. But then they're not really considering, like, okay, who could be like a partner in the space? Who would I need to build like really good relationships with? So that's awesome that you guys give people, the connections necessary and, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, would you be able to share? Has there been like a standout person who went on one of your trips and was like, oh, wow, like I'm starting this immediately? Like, have you had any stories like that?
Oh yes, I mean I can tell you point that there's a lady who is coming back in April. She's starting a beauty, what do you call it,
Beauty
a
line.
beauty line on the continent, because she does that here in the US. She produces her own hair products and everything. Now when she came for our business event, we put them in focus groups based on sectors of interest, and she joined a group that was dealing with beauty and all of that. And some of the interactions they had, of course, she met some business partners right from that business event, and now she's zooming into straight to do business. She has a business partner already intact, and we're of course helping her to navigate through the various things that she needs to navigate through, because we have a back room, setup that can help people who are interested do that. So April, she's coming to zoom into that. Now in November, we had a trip. We had two couple that wanted to go into the film industry, because the guy that was shooting our trips had great talent and potential. So they're like, well, how can we invest in this young man and to help him at the same time, of course, move into that business? Because if he rents the cameras and all of that, that's a huge, they do weddings and all of that. So they quickly, during our December trip, they had shipped down camera equipments, full set of everything to straight zoom into the business. So the year didn't even die out. They've already initiated that and it's running as I speak to you now. And the same two couple, of course, husband and wife, have come together and they're moving into real estate. In fact, they're doing that with us as soon as possible. In fact, today we actually spoke to the real estate person that we're dealing with. So people have actually made a move. And as I speak to you now, nine people, like I mentioned during the podcast, want to already move and start also doing business. In April, they're also traveling down to venture into their business, which of course I can't speak about right now. So people have actually taken steps to really dive into different sectors. Yeah. And there are some we don't actually know because they're not maybe going through us, but they've said that they're going to do business there. Yeah.
Awesome. And for your business model, do you get like let's say, a portion of, like, if someone makes like a business connection or something, like, do you get a cut of that in any way, or is the model mainly like, okay, we're bringing people on these trips, and then, obviously encouraging them to start a business or make a connection, and then, like, that's our goal? Or are you hoping to kind of also have a share in whatever sort of businesses they start?
Yeah. So I mean, when once you visit, you join the trip and you come and we have our business event, we put you in contact with other people that are doing different things, and you're able to build your own relationships with people. That's that's good. Of course, we have not no hand in that. We facilitated, excuse me, that process. Now, beyond that, if you decide to eventually make a move, now we have a back room set up. We have, if I say back room, I mean like an internal arrangement where we have a consultant and everything that can help you through business registrations and put you in contact with the necessary people in the sector you're choosing and all of that. That comes, of course, with a consultation, a consultancy fee, which has nothing to do with you coming on a trip, joining the business event, and building your own relationship. But once you want to zoom and you need our internal help with our consultants and everything to connect you beyond the business trip and the people we'll put you in contact with, that for you to be able to connect, then of course with that the consultancy aspect will come in to help you navigate through the process. And of course, if you decide to say that one of the maybe people, the partners in Certified Africa, you want to do business with them, of course that's on a different level. Then we can come together, have an agreement, and then yes, we move. But if you're doing your own thing, we have no business with that. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you guys go about, like, is it pretty easy to get people on board, as far as like businesses, in Ghana?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure. How do you mean, like, get people on board?
Or even like, let's say for, if people want to explore business opportunities, and then maybe you're showing, like, already existing businesses, in Ghana, like, is it pretty easy to get people to be a part of that experience?
Yeah, it is. A lot. We had a lot of businesses come out. So for our December business event, we had over 100 people come out, and that was both Ghanaians who are, young professionals and business owners, as well as people from the diaspora. And they both were very excited to come and interact with each other and find out, if they can partner on anything. And it's really easy, I think, for them to be attracted to something like this, because they want to connect, they want to interact and talk about business. And the people who are coming on our trips are very open and excited to learn more anyway. So it's just natural when they come together, they are open for collaboration.
Very cool. And what would you say is one of your biggest, let's say, challenges doing business or starting a company on in Ghana?
Yeah, I mean, starting a company, biggest hurdle, I would say, biggest challenge, I would say, would be, jumping through hurdles in the beginning in terms of being able to build, before you build all the necessary relationships. Because, like I said, Africa, sometimes it's about who you know and all of that. Once you build a relationship, it becomes easier. So, our biggest challenge, of course, in starting was building some of the relationships in terms of some of the new things that we're trying to do. So that was the only part that was a little challenging, having to deal with certain hurdles in the beginning. But once you were able to build all the relationships in the fields that we're diving into, it became very easy to move. So I think that was our biggest challenge in doing business in Ghana. Now, overall, for anybody who wants to do business in Ghana, again, you have to deal with the hurdles. That's the bureaucracy and all of that. That's one of the biggest challenge. But again, once you visit and you build the necessary relationships and you know this, you know that person, it becomes easy to navigate through. Doing business in Africa can be very frustrating but very rewarding, because in the beginning you don't know too many people. You're not building the relationship, so it can look a little difficult. But once you establish all the relationships, it becomes very easy and very rewarding as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing that we're super passionate about, one thing that we love is to be connectors, and we love connecting people. And so, a lot of the groundwork of what were challenges for us when we first started our business, that's something that we've incorporated for people who want to do business that are coming right behind us. And they also don't have to do as much or go through some of those same hurdles because we've already made those contacts and kind of went through that process already.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that's so great that you're using your experiences to, help people as they try and kind of do the same thing. And so, for you two as a couple, could you share like what it's like to do business with like a partner? And do you have tips for people who might be in the same boat?
Of course. So I would say that, you have to be intentional for anybody who is looking to do business with their significant other. You have to be intentional about making sure that the lines of doing business and love don't get too blurry. You have to remember that that's still your significant other, and just really, treat them with the same respect that you would anybody else, and remember that they're still someone special to you at the end of the day.
Thank you for sharing that, Kristen.
Yeah. So let me just add, if I understood if I got the question, it's about doing business with your spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that what I would say to that is the two of you have to at least want to do business together in the first place, because there are a lot of people. The one person is interested in the business and the other person is not. If you're both not interested in it, it becomes very challenging. So the two of you must want to do that business or want to get involved with that. That's how it becomes a lot more easier. Otherwise, one has to be very understanding to say that I'm going to be in business with you for this when I have no interest in it. I can support you, but to be in business together, it can be a little difficult if you both don't enjoy that thing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. And to kind of wrap up, what would you say inspires you about Africa's future?
Yeah, I mean Africa has great potential. And when I look at the young people that I see all over the world, black people all over the world now coming to the realization of Africa's potential, I see Africa having all the great talents coming together to build it. And that's a place that you want to be, because Africa has been projected to be the next China, and you want to be in the next China. So that really gets me excited that at least one day I'll get to be in a place and doing stuff in such a place where a lot of things are going to take place, a lot of developments are going to happen. It makes me, of course, look into the future and say and be glad about being from Africa. So that's one of the things that excites me about at least the continent and the future of the continent.
Yeah, I would say the same. Like, pretty much every day, like, something new comes to mind, some new idea or something kind of drops into my mind about the possibilities of, oh, that could be a great business idea, or oh, that would be great if they had that particular thing in Africa. And when I look at just the amazing people that are there, the amazing talents, just so many undiscovered talents, people who have never even had the spotlight on them, but they have the most amazing potential in the world. When I think about that, I just know that there is an amazing future ahead for Africa. And that's something that, we also want to do, to shed light on just the amazing things that are happening on the continent, both within business and then both within the talents that people have, and to draw the two cultures together. So we want to, draw the diaspora and Africans living in Africa together to really dive into channeling into what the future of Africa can be.
Yeah, and Cora, just a quick one. I think Africa, one of the other things that excites me is the fact that one day we can all be very proud, to be Africans. Because of course, from the past, you have people who still are not proud to be Africans based on the fact that, okay, if you say you're from Africa, nobody really respects that. But Africa is getting to a pedigree based on the things that are happening. In fact, today, even in entertainment, I go to places here in America and I hear them playing Davido, Burna Boy, all of these guys from Africa, and they're jamming to it. They're excited about it. It tells you that we're getting out there. And very soon, in the near future, people can really be proud everywhere. Every black person everywhere can be proud and say, yes, I'm African. And that's one of the things that excites me about the future of Africa.
Man, thank you both. That was well said and beautifully put. So I really appreciate you guys being thoughtful about that question. I completely agree. I think this is just a great time to be African, and I love that more people are becoming just more proud of where they're from, and people are curious and want to learn more about the continent. And yeah, I love seeing what you guys are doing and all the other similar initiatives, working to connect the diaspora to the continent. So thank you both for being guests on the show. I really enjoyed this conversation and loved learning more about you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Be sure to visit www.certifiedafrica.com and follow Certified Africa on Instagram. If you have any sort of interest in traveling to the continent and learning more about business opportunities there, Certified Africa is certainly the way to do so. So be sure to show them some love and learn more using the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Dear Diaspora. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. You can find us on Instagram at Dear Diaspora or visit our website at deardiasporashow.com. Thank you, and talk to you next week.